All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling a single, absolutely radical idea that might just change the way you see, well, everything. From why we build massive skyscrapers to why we write poetry and fall in love. It all comes from Ernest Becker's Pulitzer Prize-winning masterpiece, The Denial of Death. So let's get ready to peel back some pretty profound and maybe even unsettling layers.
The whole book, and really this whole explainer, hinges on one incredibly powerful question. What if the engine that drives all of human civilization, our art, our religions, our wars, our greatest ambitions, what if it isn't some noble quest for progress, but actually a desperate, terrified sprint away from a truth we all know but can't bear to face?
Okay, so Becker kicks things off with a metaphor for the human condition that is, well, it's designed to be shocking. He calls it our fundamental paradox, and he sums it up with this German phrase you see here, Ein Gott mit einem After, which translates to a god with an anus.
Now hold on. This isn't just to be crude or provocative. It's actually meant to be incredibly profound. This one single quote, for Becker, captures the central, agonizing conflict of what it means to be human. And he believed this conflict is the root source of pretty much all of our anxiety.
So what is that conflict? This slide breaks it down perfectly. On one side, we have our symbolic self. This is the part of us that can dream of infinity, write poems about eternity, and search for cosmic meaning. In our minds, we are basically gods. But, and this is a huge but, we're trapped in our biological self. This is the part that's just an animal, a body that gets old, gets sick, has to perform messy biological functions, and 100% for sure is going to die and decay. This insane split between our infinite feeling mind and our very finite body creates a terror so deep, so fundamental, that we just can't live with it consciously.
So how in the world do we cope with this unbearable terror? How do we even get out of bed in the morning? Well, Becker argues that we do it by constructing what he calls Die lebensnotwendige Lüge, or the vital lie. It's a defense mechanism that literally allows us to function.
And this vital lie takes a specific form. Becker borrowed a term from Wilhelm Reich and called it character armor. Now think about this. What you consider your personality, your identity, your ego, Becker says that's not really you. It's a shield, a suit of armor you've been building since you were a child, pieced together from the expectations of your parents and society. And its whole job? To make you feel important and safe in a universe where, fundamentally, you're not.
And this is where it gets really wild. Being normal, getting the job, paying the mortgage, following the rules of society, is, in Becker's view, just participating in a shared delusion. It's like we all silently agree to follow these cultural scripts because it's a fantastic distraction from the paralyzing truth of our own mortality. We're all playing a game to keep the terror from creeping in.
But, just being distracted isn't quite enough for us humans. We don't just want to forget death, we want to beat it. And this drive leads us to what Becker called Projekte für die Ewigkeit, projects for eternity.
The logic here is actually pretty simple. It goes something like this. Okay, my physical body is going to die and turn to dust. So I have to become a part of something that will not die. This could be a nation, a religion, a great work of art, a family legacy, a business empire, you name it. These are all immortality projects. There are big attempts to live on, symbolically, long after our bodies are gone.
And as you can see here, culture basically provides us with a menu of pre-approved ways to be a hero. Becker called culture a codified hero system. So whether you're a martyr for your faith, hoping for literal immortality, or a patriot dying for your country, merging with something bigger, or an artist trying to create a timeless masterpiece, or even a CEO building a corporate monument, you are, at your core, chasing the exact same thing, making your life feel like it counts for something that will last forever.
But this constant, desperate drive for heroism has a really dark side. What happens when our character armor starts to crack? What happens when our immortality projects fall apart and fail?
For Becker, this isn't just some abstract philosophical problem. It's a real clinical one. He argues that a lot of what we call mental illness is simply the result of our defenses against death anxiety crumbling. The vital lie stops working. And when that happens, the person is left totally raw and exposed to the full-blown terror of existence.
This slide lays out a fascinating, if unsettling, framework. Let's take depression. In this view, depression is being absolutely crushed by the weight of your biological self, your finitude. You feel worthless because your immortality project has failed you. Schizophrenia is seen as the polar opposite, a complete retreat into a private, symbolic world to escape the messy, terrifying reality of the body. And then neurosis? That's what happens when our cultural defenses just aren't quite strong enough to keep that constant underlying anxiety from bubbling up to the surface.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is some really heavy, out there philosophy. And for decades, that's pretty much what it was. But then in the 1980s, a group of social psychologists decided to see if they could actually test these ideas. And what they came up with was something called terror management theory, or TMT. And the results they found are, well, they're pretty astounding.
The central idea they tested is called the mortality salience hypothesis, and it's pretty simple. In hundreds upon hundreds of studies, researchers find subtle ways to remind people that they're going to die. And what happens? Almost without fail, people react by clinging way more tightly to their cultural beliefs, their patriotism, their religion. But here's the really troubling part. They also become more hostile and prejudiced against anyone who is different, anyone who represents a challenge to their particular immortality project.
Wow, I mean, this all sounds incredibly bleak, doesn't it? If our whole civilization is just a massive defense against terror, is there any hope? Is there any way out? Is there a path to wisdom? Becker was convinced that there was.
The solution, he said, isn't to find a better lie or build a stronger suit of armor. For Becker, the only real solution is to bravely face the truth. It's about acknowledging our fear, our creatureliness, and our desperate need for meaning, and then learning to work with that reality, instead of constantly running from it.
And this leads to what he called cosmic heroism. It's a type of heroism that doesn't need to create enemies to feel strong. It's about consciously confronting our own mortality, what some spiritual traditions call practicing dying. And when we do that, we can start to loosen the death grip of our character armor and become more open, more authentic. We can then take that innate human need to be a hero and redirect it. So instead of trying to build a bigger empire for ourselves, maybe we focus on building a stronger community. It's about shifting our focus from self-preservation to compassion, creativity, and finding meaning in our connection to the incredible whole of life itself.
And that right there leaves us with a final, massive, challenging question. If so much of what we call normal life is just a complex shared defense against the truth of our own situation, how can any of us find a way to live with real courage and authenticity? That's the question Becker leaves us wrestling with, and it's definitely one worth thinking about.